followed by Gordon Lyndhurst.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Last year at my party's conference, the First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, made the announcement that our government would create a Scottish National Investment Bank. And the announcement got a standing ovation. I was sat next to one of the ministers tasked with delivering it, if Mr Wheelhouse remembers, and the importance of what it means to people was obvious from the response that we witnessed. A national bank supporting Scottish businesses and their economy is a real chance to do things differently. And I want to use my time today to put my views on record of the different approaches this bank could have and what I see are the opportunities to unlock latent potential and nurture new and existing business. And you'll notice I say nurture rather than just grow, and my use of language is no accident. As convener of the cross-party group on Women in Enterprise and someone who tries to represent the many views of women-led businesses in every debate in the economy in this chamber, my take on this will come as no surprise. In the 2 years that I've convened the group, we have had 2 complete sessions on access to finance, and I don't see the topic being sidelined in our work programme anytime soon. I'm very glad to hear Willie Rennie concentrate on women's issues in his speech, but I note that any of the Lib Dems have come along to the CPG, so I'd like to formally extend an invitation for someone to represent them. So a plug for the CPG there. In Scotland, women-led businesses represent 50% of businesses receiving start-up support that are owned by women, yet only 20% of women-led businesses are making it into the growth pipeline, and only 5% of Scottish enterprise account-managed businesses are run by women. And one of the reasons for this is the finance gap. The joint submission to the consultation by Women's Enterprise Scotland in Gender, Close the Gap and the Scottish Women's Budget Group has a number of key asks of the Scottish National Investment Bank, and I'd like to summarise them. They say the principle of equality and non-discrimination should be at the bank's core. Investment in infrastructure should not just be about bricks, steel and fibre optic cable. Childcare has the same economic impact and should be considered as infrastructure worthy of investment. The investment bank should help fund research and development that creates jobs and technologies equally targeted at both genders. Women's businesses should stop being undercapitalised, and a rebalancing of finance nurturing women-led business could be an injection of over £7.6 billion into the Scottish economy. And the bank should be governed by a gender-balanced, gender-competent leadership team. It should gather gender-disaggregated data, and its client offers should be gender-sensitive, with all personnel involved in managing finance offers to be trained to be gender-sensitive and eliminate unconscious bias out of the decision-making process. And I agree with all those points. And I want to use this opportunity to put on record my call to see women being regarded as an economic growth sector in their own right, and I'd like to see the Scottish National Investment Bank having women's enterprise recognised as a key area for financial support. Another key focus should be on the creation of new markets, as has been mentioned by a few people already. And most obviously, renewable energy, which would demand patient capital to develop technologies for the future, which would overtake fossil fuel and lay down a pathway for engineering skills to transfer between the 2 energy sectors. And of course, as I've mentioned in my intervention to Kate Forbes, the loss of European structural funding. We have a pressing need to fund innovation, but this requires a long-term commitment and an expectation that returns will not be immediate. For example, I'd like to see finance being offered to allow existing companies to explore new markets. For example, oil and gas service companies be able to take out finance to invest in restructuring and retraining to access renewable energy contracts, and perhaps work with universities to create groundbreaking technology which we can drive our economy forward and, of course, export throughout the world. In my area of the North East, there is a pressing need for diversification and innovation in order to make the area workforce less vulnerable to market changes and to retain talent in a geographical area. Many consultation respondents have made mention of regional targeting. This could be businesses wishing to operate in areas of Scotland which have a pressing need for investment, jobs, or are facing an economic shock, could qualify for long-term patient capital support in order to bolster economic activity and make these areas attractive to new investors. And many submissions also made a case for infrastructure investment in regions facing economic issues. I also think the access to finance that the SNIB provides can bolster the efficacy of the Scottish Business Pledge. Access to their finance could be dependent on the applicant company signing up to and demonstrating compliance with the key areas of the Fair Work agendas on the pledge. Many of the discussions that we've had both in the Economy Committee and the cross-party group on women's enterprise, have centred around the possibility of the Scottish National Investment Bank also potentially filling in the gap in the market that used to be offered by high street banks, particularly with regard to small and medium-sized enterprises. And there's a real opportunity to address the market failures in lending, particularly in the post-banking crisis, which is arguably limiting the growth of our SMEs. Sub £1 million loans could potentially have a great impact, particularly when it comes to enabling SMEs to service large contracts, which would also allow them to grow and internationalise. And the SME base arguably has the most potential for growth. But finally, I want to end on one significant aspect of the Scottish National Investment Bank, and that's that it will not be working for shareholders, but working for its stakeholders, and that's the people of Scotland. And, Presiding Officer, I think that's the main reason why people got to their feet that day when the First Minister announced its creation.